Hello, my name is Dale DuFay. I'm going to talk a little bit about why we see differences and variations and actually should really expect them. We need to, you know, if we see like a movie title, for example, this is what caught my attention to maybe talk about this some more. But this movie called Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines. It's kind of a zany movie made in the mid 60s by Brit. It was made in Britain, but it was about a race from London to Paris in 1910. And like I said, it's kind of a somewhat corny, but I always watched it because I love the flying machines, the airplanes. So like in 1910, so there was all kinds of competitors from every country. The American had Wright brothers plane, and the French had their real like hot rod little monoplane and stuff like. But basically, all countries, including I think Japan, I recall, but I don't remember seeing them in this movie. Again, we can expect these things, but it was interesting here. Just explaining why I watched it every time it came on, and the reality I recall where this portion of my soul originated from. I watched it many times, whenever it came on, because I was always fascinated by the airplanes. Because I build model airplanes and fly RC planes and things like that, and I always enjoyed aviation in general. So I always watched it, but it was called Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines. And I always thought the title was really long. It was not only was it kind of a zany movie, but the title, I always thought, wow, it's a really long title. But, lo and behold, here they call it Those Magnificent Men, and that's it. And it seems a little more appropriate, perhaps, but the song at the end of the movie, even the title of the song was Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, even in this reality. But it's just amazing how it's the same movie, and I didn't see really any differences and variations within the movie, other than I can't remember, come to think of it, seeing the Japanese, but it came in later, and I think they fell out of the race contention real early. Perhaps I missed it, but within the movie it's virtually identical, and that's what's really amazing about the Mandela effect, and what makes it so confusing is, for the most part, everything is identical, but you're going to see variations and differences. And again, we have to really keep this in mind. It's not changing. They didn't change the title to Those Magnificent Men. They didn't just shorten it all of a sudden. They made it in 1965. They didn't down the road change the name or shorten it. You can look it up. It was always titled from day one, Those Magnificent Men. But I recall it always being, the long title, Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machines, vividly. Again, because I remember always thinking, wow, what a really long title. But it does bring up an interesting point. Why would it be different? The one thing I noticed is in these realities that it's really interesting is things seem to be, they seem to cut corners. And they also are more practical, it seems. Like in the Bible verse in Isaiah where they're talking about the lion and the wolf. That's more applicable if you think about it. But yet it means the same thing as a lion and a lamb. It just, it's nothing sinister or evil. It was just simply written that way in this reality. Again, this should be something we should expect, because each reality is identical for the most part as they are. There's going to be variations and differences, and we shouldn't be surprised. Even though I enjoy seeing them, because it just obviously confirms the obvious, which is we're in a completely different reality inside of a replica version of ourselves that has always existed since the day you were born. Think about that. It's important to realize that these realities have always existed, and we're being allowed to visit them. And of course, our soul portion, the one will always have, very easily coalesces into any replica version of yourself. I always liken it when we shift, that every portion of your soul is shifting at the same time, just like musical chairs. When it happens to every portion of your soul. Your soul is one as a whole, but yet fractured and splintered. But like I said, these realities, they have shortcuts. You could see it in the movie props. They're not just the movie titles. Some of the scripts are different. And it seems like wherever there's decisions, like an occupation, like an editor, and people who have decisions to make all the time, every day, and other people involved in their work, and they have decisions to make, and so on. But the more there are, the more variations and differences we'll see in different realities. And it makes sense, because it has to be according to whatever Earth you're on. And it seems like they cut, they're going to make an hour and a half movie. It'll be the same hour and a half movie in every reality, but they have to cut corners here in these realities. And it's not out of cheapness. It's out of lack of time, for a better word. Because it's very obvious to all of us that the time is faster here. And there's an explanation for that. I've done many videos about that. A very simple explanation. The time is calibrated by human beings. It is calibrated for each Earth, regardless of what size it is. It's going to be split up in 24 hours. One full revolution equals 24 hours off its axis, regardless of what size the Earth is. Also, every Earth, regardless of what size, spins at the exact same speed off its axis. And that's really fascinating. And that explains why the time is faster here. These Earths are smaller, and they're calibrated, by humans, 24 hours, split it up as the Earth takes one revolution. So the time is actually 50% faster on these Earths. But yet the time remains the same throughout every reality. That's that quantum entanglement. It's incredible, you think about it. But there has to be made up somewhere, even though that entanglement, that quantum entanglement, must be maintained at all times as much as possible. There has to be a compensation. I call it quantum compensation. It has to exist, and that's where we see it. They cut corners. They didn't do it really to save time on the title of those magnificent men. They just seemed more practical and general here. Even though the people who were in charge of, the editors and whatnot of that movie, they, every reality they were doing that movie, and every reality they probably were discussing amongst themselves, whoever was involved, how should we do the title? In every reality they were discussing that. But in some realities they cut the title in half, and others they kept it full. But they did keep the song title at the end, though, as a full title, as I remember it. Because I know I wasn't, thinking that, I was wrong about but I remember vividly that it was those magnificent men and their flying machines. And again, that obviously that was on a Sagittarius super Earth, that reality. That still exists. We're still there. There's just another portion of your soul in that replica version of yourself where your portion of your soul originated. This is incredible talking about this. You got to make up your own vocabulary. It's crazy. But that's exactly what's happening. As simple as that. It's Mandela effects revealing it. And because they had more time on those super Earths, those giant Earths were divided in 24 sections, 24 hours, one full revolution, spinning off the axis at the same speed as all the other Earths throughout the Milky Way galaxy. Of course, we were oblivious to that, but the Mandela effect's revealing that, because this reality is literally 75,000 light years from the reality I recall. And it seems it's obvious that quantum entanglement knows no boundaries, and science knows this already. But they're still on an experimental stage as far as experimenting with atoms and splitting protons and things like that. They have yet to realize that has already been done at the point of creation, and every soul and every being has been splintered and fractured like this. Who knows how many realities there are. I've always said I believe it's why wouldn't it be infinite? Just within this Milky Way galaxy, there could be billions of Earths and realities. We know there's many here in the inner Orion Arm, that's for sure. Almost 100 that I know of for sure, that I've been allowed to coalesce into a replica version of myself in each and every one of those realities for a short period of time. It's really fascinating when you think about it. But we should come to expect, why titles and certain things will be different. But again, I'm sure they all discussed how they were going to title that movie. But in some realities, they cut it in half, and others they kept it full. And why that is, again, I don't think the title in that case had anything to do with the time constraints, but I think it had a lot more to do with practicality. Because again, that's why I remember the title vividly. The full-length title is because it was so long, But I always, every time I saw that on the TV guide, I turned that on just to watch the airplanes and watching them fly, because a lot of people got injured in that movie and everything, but they kept it real authentic, even though it was kind of zany, kind of, how the British are, especially in the 60s. But it's just things we should expect, and it's interesting to realize too that a lot of things, variations and differences, like in the props and backgrounds in movies, boy, they look so. The one I always got me was the Planet of the Apes, Ape City. When I remember watching it originally, back when it was made in a drive-in theater and watching it several times afterwards, that Ape City was made with plaster because, like Brookfield Zoo in Chicago, for example. During the Depression, they made all the exhibits and they made all artificial stones and everything with plaster. And our neighbor actually worked on that project. As I was growing up, this old man, he talked about it often, and you can see the work. It's still there. It's incredible. But Ape City was constructed like that as well on the movie set, all plaster. It looked like very realistic, inside and out of every building. But here, I was so shocked to see it. Literally, it was like paper mache, just unbelievable. Literally done with paper mache. It's just horrible. I just couldn't believe it. I was shocked. But once you realize why that is, it's that quantum entanglement. It has to be maintained, and they have to cut corners here in order to get that 90-minute movie done. Because on the Super Earths, they have more time because their props are, remarkable. Another example is like the Ben-Hur movie at the chariot race. Now, I remember that circus and that arena being unbelievably beautiful and just accurate and detailed, everything. But here, if you watch the race in certain shots and areas where they show the walls of the arena on the outer ring, you could see that it's incomplete plasterwork. You could see the metal grid work and everything. So obviously they, in order to get this, I believe that movie was going on 3 hours. In order to get that done, they're unconsciously, unwittingly, they have no idea that they're oblivious to the fact that there's replica versions of themselves throughout the galaxy that are experiencing time differently. Some of them, in the Super Earths, they have 50% more time. So there's a lot. But the movie has to be done, and it has to be the same length. So the compensation has to be somewhere. Think about it. It's in the backdrops and everything. Isn't that something? They're incomplete or just so. And it's not because they're saving money and being cheap here. They have to cut corners. They don't realize why. Again, the people, the movie makers, editors, and all that, they're totally oblivious. They don't know that there's replica versions of themselves that's been sharing their soul since the day they were born in realities where they have much more time. But they're subconsciously connected to those replica versions of themselves constantly on a subconscious level. We all are. Even though we're aware that we have replica versions of ourselves, you're still totally oblivious to what they're doing. But of course, you could be rest assured they're doing exactly what you're doing, and you're doing exactly what they're doing. It's an incredible thing about the Mandela effect. But I wanted to touch a little bit on that movie, in the title, how, and a good reason perhaps as to why it's different to cut it. Like I said, they're more practical here. They have to be, and when they can't be, they have to cut corners elsewhere. But yet, the time remains the same. That's what's incredible about that quantum entanglement. But again, we have to keep in mind that it's human beings who invented the time and calibrate the time on the Earth's. So each one's going to be different, depending on its size. Of course, almost all these Orion dwarf Earths are the exact same circumference of 24,800 miles. So, the time's the same on all of these realities. So there may be, who knows, tens of thousands, if not millions, of realities that have the exact same time. And there's tens of thousands, if not millions, perhaps, of realities where the time is 50% faster. And in between as well. And that's how everything kind of maintains that quantum entanglement. It must be maintained at all times. And of course, there's going to be hiccups and glitches. We see it. That's why weird things happen that are unexplained, paranormal things, all that. You can tie it all into that quantum entanglement. I'm starting to get more interested in not ghost or anything like that per se, but the spirits that do exist in that realm that are haunting people and why they're there, and the residuals that can be picked up by certain people that have those gifts. Those people amaze me, that see the dead people and stuff. But I guarantee all that has to do with that quantum entanglement. It's all about the residual residue. And we see that with residual evidence on products, and that's easily explained as well. I can do a whole video about that. This theory that we all have a parallel existence on a multitude of Earths in the same dimension. Remember, we're separated by the distance, not dimensions. So, it's that quantum entanglement, and it's always got, it's everything. It's, almost every paranormal thing, you can chalk it up to quantum entanglement. And those seers, people who have those gifts, perhaps they have more portions of their soul in a different realm. And because when I say we're separated by distance and not dimension, it doesn't mean we don't have dimensions. Of course we do, other dimensions. But those people are able to, access versions of themselves that are ahead. Because that seems like another thing with the Mandela effect. What explains why we get deja vu. When we felt like we walked in that room and never did. Well, actually you did. There was a replica version of yourself in another reality that's constantly connected to you subconsciously that did actually walk into that room 30 seconds before you did, perhaps. A split second, perhaps. Maybe even 20 minutes, who knows? That's why some can get premonitions. So obviously there's realities that are ahead of us, but again, like to say, the time always remains the same. And because the Earths are calibrated by humans, it almost makes time irrelevant. Our linear time is irrelevant, and the Mandela effect is proving that. Because regardless of the size of the Earth and how long a full revolution takes, the realities are all still intertwined. I always kind of liken it to a roll of film. It's just each frame in that film is a reality of yours. There's some behind you, some ahead of you. That's why we get deja vu. That's why we have premonitions and things. That's why certain people can access everything in that realm, which we have to keep in mind that spirit realm and any dimensions are all parallel as well. Each Earth has its own heaven, if you think about it. Heaven is parallel as well. It's really fascinating when you think about it, what the Mandela effect is revealing. And it's really quite simple. It explains everything. And, like we said, deja vu explains all that, everything. And, that theory, if you buy into that theory, again, I'm not saying I'm correct. I'm not that smart. I have to take things real simple, so I kept it real simple. And you can't overcomplicate this because it's impossible. These realities are not changing. They're always the same. It's just different. Literally, it's just different. And you're in a different reality that you've always existed in. You have no idea. We know now. These bodies are more robust. I mean, it's incredible. You can go on and on about the variations and differences. Of course, some of them have to do with time restraints, and also, obviously, our bodies are more robust here because they have to be. Everything seems to be tied into these Earths because remember, the Earth is parallel as well. And it's incredible. So they're alive and have a soul as well, a splintered and fractured soul, like all life on it. So all life on it, in each reality, is going to, how I'm trying to figure out how to say it, represent the earth they were, or built to suit the earth they were created on, and will always remain there. In every reality, nothing can leave. The only thing that's allowed to go from reality to reality is our soul portions, our spirit, which is obviously splintered and fractured, because this version of myself has always been here, made the same decisions I did, and it's always been here. So it had to have my soul in it. I didn't know that. So obviously our soul is splintered and fractured. I mean, you start breaking things down into logic, removing the things that are impossible, like things changing, realities changing. It's impossible. But it is possible, is improbable as it is, that we have multiple realities in the same dimension, where quantum entanglement knows no boundary, where all life and everything, the Earth's included, are bound with this quantum entanglement. It's everything. I firmly believe it's the dark matter that astrophysicists are so, not concerned, but trying to figure out what it is. It has to be that quantum entanglement, because I know for sure it spans at least 75,000 miles. I have a reality 75,000 miles from here. Many of you do as well. The Earth and solar system didn't move 75,000 light years overnight. That's impossible. This solar system has always been here. Of course, it's gradually venturing out the galactic arm, like all of these solar systems with Earths and others are. And the Mandela effect's proving that. Those Earths on the outer edges and the outer tip of the Sagittarius arm are behemoths and wonderful, magnificent Earths. But these dwarf Earths are awesome as well. And they're all tied together. Whatever happens on these Orion dwarf Earths is going to happen on the Sagittarius super Earths, earthquakes and all. That's why we know that's proof. You look into the geological record of any reality, or weather record even, in any reality, and big recorded weather events and things like that are going to be on the same day in every reality. Like D-Day on June 4th, 1944. The storm raged over the North Sea, and regardless of which orientation England was in and how far that channel they had to cross, they went through the same weather issues. And I remember in August 8th, 1988 is the first night game at Wrigley Field, and that was a drought year, a very bad drought that whole summer. It didn't rain at all, but of course that night it rained. And that happened in every reality. But in some realities, they delayed the game, and others, they postponed it to the next day. But the effect is that rain event on a drought year, and a memorable event happened in every reality. So that proves that the Earth and the events on Earth are all quantumly entangled as well, and happen in every reality. I mean, that's what's so cool about what the Mandela effect's revealing. It's revealing everything about life that we've always ever wondered about. And boy, I always knew that there was a lot more to life than what we were living. And the Mandela effect has sure proven that. There's a lot more than, even those of us that are understanding the Mandela effect more than we can all ever realize. It's incredible. And when the bottom line is, it comes right down to us human beings. Obviously, we're not aware of it, but we are the pinnacle of creation in the Milky Way galaxy, and very, very envied. And that's why there's so much tension around us, all this, you know what I mean? It's all about us humans, but the mass majority of humanity has no idea that we have this parallel existence, because you're oblivious to it. You don't know why. But if it wasn't for what the Mandela effect's revealing, and what has always been, yet never known, this quantum entangled parallel existence, we wouldn't be able to walk. I mean, that quantum connection with all those, who knows how many replica versions of yourself sharing your soul, has to happen. Otherwise, we would not even exist. So from day one, it's always been parallel like this. It's not like fracturing and getting more and more and more, or getting less and less and less, or nothing. It's always from day one. Our souls have been splintered and fractured, and the earths and everything on them. Dinosaurs even had a parallel existence, of course, because we have the records on every single Earth. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was found in Montana, named Sue, that the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, Illinois purchased. It's in every single field museum, in every single Chicago, in every single state of Illinois, in every reality. So we know that dinosaurs in the past in our history had a parallel existence too. So what does that tell us? That it's essential, that we wouldn't even exist without. We wouldn't be able to walk, we wouldn't be able to breathe, we wouldn't be able to do anything if it was just a singularity, a single soul and a single traffic pile-ups would be all over. People would be bumping into you know what I mean? Wearing respirators. I mean, it's bad enough as it is, but I've always thought on busy highways that it's amazing that there ain't more accidents than there are. But again, that's that quantum entanglement. When you watch an auto race, it's amazing that they don't crash more than they do. But again, that's that quantum entanglement. It keeps the drivers, when they practice, the more practice you do and everything, the better and more perfect you get at it. And that's that quantum entanglement. Now we understand why. That's the crazy thing, is understanding why now, and then not being able to tell anybody. So with that, I'll talk at you later, and I thank you for watching. Love you.